Commissioner Kennedy. Are the deficiencies that the office has experienced a matter of public record, and if so, where can I access those?
Yes, ma'am. You can go to the Auditor of Public Accounts website, and it's listed there. If you want to meet with me after this, I can get the specific site for you if I Google it on my phone.
And for both of you, do you have you spoke to a lot of issues and a lot of things that you bring to the table with this. Do you have a website that can be accessed so that I can revisit?
So, I can answer first. I will have a website that will be accessible. It's currently in the works. The timeline for when the election was posted and to become qualified and to run is pretty tight for this special election. So I'm working on it to be posted, and I can provide that at a later date if you want to give me your contact information and address.
Maybe providing it to the Dems. And Ashley, do you have?
Ditto. Pretty much the same sentiments. The timing of the appointed interim clerk in December, the timing of starting the special election process with getting qualified, and then all the other duties of January deadlines as clerk with budgeting and stuff like that. I've been limited with my time, and I'm trying to. I'm not doing the best at campaigning because I'm focused on the office.
Sarah, did you have a question?
Yeah, so, for both of you, do you plan to run for November, regardless of the outcome?
Yes, ma'am.
I do as well.
Great, and for Ashley, I just wondered, do you plan, if you're unable to be successful in this election, to stay on as, what would probably be deputy clerk, no?
I would go back to my role as deputy clerk, if that's still there for me.
Yeah, great, no, that's good. And for Jamie, I just wonder, you know, the experience that you have obviously in legal systems and processes is great, but it is very different to be in a publicly held office versus private experience. So can you just talk a little bit about how you expect to cross that bridge?
So it is different working for a private employer versus holding public office. Running for office is different, right? It's completely different than the interview process for a private employer. So to bridge that gap, I think a lot of the things that you learn in a private employment setting crosses over well to public office. I've worked and interacted with folks regularly. So I didn't work in an office where I interacted daily, face to face with the public on a regular basis. But I did interact with a number of other folks on teams, whether it be editors or legal analysts, other departments. We had meetings where before COVID it was face to face. Within the last couple of years, a lot of it has been online and Zoom because they did in fact close our office and we were home based because they couldn't figure out how to get everybody into the office at the time. So I didn't necessarily work with the public on a day-to-day basis, face to face, but I did work with other team members. I think that you need to be responsive. You need to be there to answer questions. For outside of like my teamwork that I had with my role, whether it be editors or legal analysts, I did work with other government agencies on a regular basis. So that was a more public type setting where I was interacting with folks that had questions and needed specific answers as far as legislation goes and updates for the code that I was responsible for, whether it may be the production schedule, particular items that they needed information-wise from us, or the role that I had, a lot of times I was implementing the changes and making sure that they were set and ready to go for the government agency or the attorney's use. So it may have been even where I was asking questions like, this is how I think this should be handled. Can you please answer X, Y, and Z? So there was that interaction, but not necessarily that in the office, face-to-face on a daily basis. That being said, I think it does translate, you know, that you're talking to folks, you're answering questions, and providing information on a timely basis. So.
Bill?
My name's Bill. A question on technology. Ashby, you've been there for a few years. I have a feeling there's some gaps in technology in that office, whether it's software, hardware, et cetera. And I know that I'm make an educated guess that state-of-the-art technology for clerk of court's offices is probably moving fairly quickly along with everything else. And so I'd kind of like your assessment of where you're at and where you think you need to be if you were to be elected. And then, Jamie, coming from the private sector where you had technology at your fingertips 24/7, what your ideas might be for integrating it into Greene County. In principle, our rural areas are going to be on fiber here in another 24 months. I really do believe it's going to. I really do believe it's going to. We hope.
They keep telling us that.
Well, it's the private sector we're waiting on now. So I'd like your idea first.
So as far as technology goes, from the time I started in 2015 to now, we have implemented quite a bit. Now when you walk in and you record a deed, we scan it on the spot and give it back. It's no longer being held in the office waiting to be scanned and being mailed back weeks, months, a year later. We also have our online record system, and I want to we only have images back to 1999, but something that I would like to do in the future is get everything visible online for those subscribers to access it. Because now it only goes back to 1999 and the index only goes back to 1986. During COVID, we implemented quite a few things. We did online reporting to keep the traffic out of the office or limited for everybody's safety measures, and for those that didn't want to come in to report and they didn't want to mail it in, they could just go ahead and sign up with the online recordation system and have it reported that way. And we went to online filing also with our civil matters. So attorneys can set up a profile on the Virginia judicial system to file civil matters with our court. But my main thing with the technology is getting everything back scanned. Of course, that comes with a price and time, so we would have to look into possible grants or asking for funding during a budget process.
Oh, she didn't get her chance.
So I spoke a little bit to the website. I do think that we could make improvements on the website and make things more accessible to those as far as knowing what they need to provide or have for particular items they may come into the office for, whether it be marriage licenses or real estate transactions, probate, right? It could have more description as far as what services the clerk's office provides, and just a better outline of what's available and what can be done there, so that folks understand what the office can do and how it can help them. Right? So I think there are some things on the website that we can do to improve. I am not, so in my role, I work with technology teams. I know a fair amount about different systems and processes. I am not someone that can actually code or create within the technology space, but I do have experience working closely with engineering teams. I have actually been a product owner. A lot of private companies for technology have gone to a agile approach where they have teams that are technology, and then they have the team that they're contributing to. So for me, it would have been editorial. They have a product owner there to say, this is what we need, this is how these items need to be prioritized, this is how we need to implement it. We meet regularly. I actually had that role for quite some time as a product owner and was able to work with the technology teams and talk about it. So I do understand and know how to ask the questions and work through what the requirements are for the system and get help with that as far as the implementation piece goes. So I think I can bridge that gap as far as discussion and figuring out how do we get there with technology. There are other softwares that are readily available that the office may access and use too that make day-to-day work easier to track, easier to navigate and to know how it's being handled, how things are being moved across. But without being in the office on a day-to-day basis, I can't say exactly what I think would be the best thing. I would need to be there and actually see the processes and come up with some ideas and thoughts as far as that goes. And I'm sure, like Ashby mentioned, that there would be certain things that you need to request budget for, right, for implementation. One of the things that I don't think I spoke to before is the certification of the clerk of court. I do think that that's important, and I also think that some of those certification classes and what have you can lead you to understanding and knowing more so about what other clerks have done or what's available in the larger sense, right? What we could look at implementing, so.
Thank you both, and thank you for running.
Did you have a question, Mary?
Yes, I have one question for each of you. First, for Ashby. You mentioned that there had been an audit, 2 audits really. The first one found 10 deficiencies, and the second one, after the previous clerk had left, there were 4. Could you tell us what those 4 are and how, if you were elected, you would address them?
Do you mind if I grab my phone so I'm not misstating anything? Okay.
I just want to say, I think when the second audit happened, the other clerk was
She was
still
still on.
in her role.
Yeah.
Ashby didn't take over till December,
Oh, okay.
and she didn't have access to certain things.
Well, okay, so then maybe you don't.
She can read.
Oh, okay.
The audit that was done this past October, the first deficiency that was there was reconcile the bank account. The second one is participate in the tax set-off debt collection program. The third one, is bill and collect probate taxes. And the fourth one is prepare and file annual trust fund report. I can say that the Office of the Executive Secretary, along with the auditor, has worked with our office diligently. This past November, December, I worked alongside with the OES team, and the bank has been reconciled. The bank's, yeah, so that's been taken care of.
The executive secretary is somebody on the audit side.
That is the Supreme Court. The Office of the Executive Secretary is the Supreme Court. So those ladies, I've worked with them to get the bank reconciliation taken care of, because it had been a long time since that was done, and it needed to be happening. And then bill and collect the probate taxes. Another lady in our office has taken over the probate stuff, and so she's on top of that. That should be squared away already, if it hasn't already been taken care of. And then the trust fund reports, we needed to, I'm sorry, it's very small. File the reports for 2021 and 2022. We have gotten those done and before the judge. So that has also been taken care of. So the biggest one right now is the tax set-off collection program. And that we have to take training for, and we're working on that.
Do you know if there'll be another audit?
So there was a turnover audit, which is just at the end of Ms. Duckworth's resignation and the start of my appointment, there was a turnover audit done to make sure that everything's accounted for. And that has been done, but that's only the money portion of it. It's not an extensive audit like into all the records and the reports and stuff like that. So our next audit will probably be October of next year, or this year, excuse me. It's a yearly audit.
Jamie, you mentioned several aspects of your work in the private sector that would equip you to do this job. Is there anything, do you think there's much in your law training specifically that would benefit you in this position?
I think that my law
training means that I have a pretty robust understanding of the types of work that attorneys do in real estate, wills, et cetera. Just a general understanding of the documents, process, what has to be filed, that type of thing, that would benefit me. And also, legal training and education in law means that you have a pretty good understanding of the judiciary system as far as the types of cases, what goes before various courts, and what have you. So I think that law training to that extent does benefit me in understanding the role that the clerk's office plays for daily interactions, whether it's the judiciary or non-judicial functions. I think I said earlier, though I may have forgotten, it's not a office where you can provide guidance as far as practicing law, or something of that nature, but understanding the law and how that interplay works and what's important to the attorneys, to the judges, to the general public when they come in, whether it be title insurance companies or surveyors or what have you, it makes a difference.